I'm Brad Smith, and I want to welcome you to the Visionary Leaders Mind podcast, actually vodcast, where we explore the idea of what visionary leadership is, how it works, and what it feels like, and how to develop that capability further in yourself. And my guest today is Jure Bratkic. Hopefully I said that right.
Yes, you did, Brad. Yes, thank you.
Practice.
Thank you. Yeah, totally okay. Totally.
So
Okay.
tell me about yourself, Jure. Where are you? What's been fun for you, and kind of your journey to what you're in the middle of now?
Got it. Pretty much like 5 minutes of glory in that
Yeah,
sense.
5 minutes of Jure. Let's just go.
Born in at that time, actually, like 1977, communist country, Yugoslavia, in Europe, went through transition when the country collapsed, and see how new countries actually evolved from like a old body of that, right, and old culture and mindset. Went through schooling back in Europe, moved to United States 2003 as a startup. That's actually how it was, and it was. Now looking back, like how
you came to the United States and did a startup, or you started this as a startup and you came to the United States. Either way, which?
Well, it was. Let's put it like this: like back home, we were just spending time in a garage, thinking about and doing a little bit of with the dream of one day we'll go to the United States. Right, that's actually how it was. And then at some point, and that was, so let's say we got together in 1992, and then 2003, so 9 years later, the company was incorporated in California. And so then the transition happened. And then since then, yes, I'm here, very entrepreneurial spirit. Discover that more through time in myself, and then seeing and then talking obviously with family members, how that entrepreneurial spirit was present already, let's say in 60s, in 50s, and before the World War II, especially with my grandpa and his parents. But then because of the regime, because of the things which were at that time in place in Yugoslavia, like people were not able or not allowed, both, right, to develop and explore and proceed with their visions and with their kind of like heart, right, like what they wanted. And so I guess a little bit of that transcended then into me when I moved to the United States, and then at some point kind of like Brad just explode everything. It was like, right. Okay, well, that's
so you got the visionary virus, if you would.
Correct, exactly.
I heard that. Correct. That's important.
I got that. I guess it's part of the gene, gene code there. And so, yeah, but right, it tells me, I mean, it shows me pretty much like the importance of the environment, right? Because you can, like, you have people like all around the world who might have that gene in them, right? But because the surroundings and the environment where they live in, it's just not supportive enough, or it doesn't allow them, right? And so that tells me how important it is to live and have the opportunity to, to prosper then in, I mean, the prosperity of.
So freedom might actually be useful.
Correct. Oh, definitely. Yes, correct.
Given our current environment.
Got it. Correct. I mean, it definitely, like I said, if I compare, like it took, for example, like a little piece of the history, right? But my grandpa, when there was a landline, right? So after World War II, when they were applying to have a landline, like he was not allowed to get a landline for over 10 years. And the only reason being was because his parents were, as we would call them today, let's say entrepreneurials, right? And so because they had their own company before World War II, and then after World War II, the regime changed. So consequently, because they were his parents, he was not allowed to have a landline, like a stupid reason today, we would say, right? But that's how it was, right?
That's wild.
Yeah, correct, right? Like, and so, right, it's, and so, like I said, born in 77, and we became independent in 1991. So when the regime changed, and so you could at that time I was old enough to remember a little bit how it was living under the previous government,
Right.
and then, the change, when the change occurred. And, what that meant, that until then you only had one type of chocolate in the store, or maybe two, right? When you went and you bought a loaf of bread, right? By noon, that bread was completely hard, right? And so if you didn't eat it before, well, then, you had to mix it with some sort of liquid, right? Like, was that tea or something, right? You put the bread in your mouth so it became soft again. And so, and then after, right, the transition, so after 1991, when the market opened, and then you start start importing, right? The company started importing things into from the Western, or from around the world anyway. And then all of a sudden you were exposed to, like, so many new things which you didn't even know that, I don't know, I don't know, in whether Germany or France or so, they had it already for, I don't know, 20 years. One of the things which I'll never forget, when we were in elementary school, we had like this textbook for English, right? When we were learning English. And on the front cover, there was a small picture of an ATM machine. And so I was in, what was that? That was in what was that? Like late 90s, like 1980, whatever, 8, 9, something like that, right? And so I was looking at that picture, I'll never forget. And I was like, how come that the money is coming out? Like, what is that? Like, we didn't know what an ATM machine was, right? And so years after, when our national bank first actually introduced the ATM machine, that was like a big deal. Like, you just can go and you just get the money. Like, that was like, wow, right? So these are like, small memories, like kind of like, but it puts into a perspective, like completely different perspective, and then you can value, like living in the United States, regardless of the, like daily challenges and all that, but it gives a completely different perspective, right? On both sides, because now, talking or looking at other countries around the world where they might have the same still or similar governments, right? Where I came from. So I can relate to that, how it is for those people living there, right? And then the transition when they come, let's say, to the US or to any other Western country, right? It's very different.
Right? We are so spoiled in this country. I am mature enough, old enough that I remember before ATMs, before, you'd either go to the bank during the week to get your cash, or, right, you had to go to the grocery store. That was it.
Got it. Right. Correct. That
was it.
Correct.
Period.
Yeah. Right. Correct.
And the younger people in this country will never remember that and never experience that.
Right. Correct. Like, you do, like experiences like this, it gives you, first of all, different perspective, but also that you cherish certain things probably more than just simply being born into, right? Because you don't know the other side, right? And then it's hard then to compare just by history books, right? It's hard because you don't know how it feels.
Right.
So yeah, that's the
impact. How to think forward and think, imagine, so to kind of go back to the theme of, and then we're going to get back to your story, but imagine the gentlemen that were, or men and women, right, that were inventing the ATM. Did they have any idea what the impact would be on the country?
Correct.
None.
Correct. Exactly. Right.
I mean, I'm sure they did. They wanted that, right? In their wildest dreams.
Correct.
But that's the visionary, forward-looking stuff.
Correct. Man. That's a very good example. Correct. Yeah. I mean, you would wonder if they really knew what the impact will be, right? After, right.
The ramifications. Yeah.
Correct.
Consequences.
Correct. Yeah. That's so true. Yeah. But anyway, so that's actually, so then I came here, and for 2003, and then until next good 15 years, completely, entrepreneurial waters, like daily, and growing the business, and then business exit, and then just, like I said, just exploded. Like, after that, it was just, okay, well, and I got invited to different projects areas, and on top of that, also my personal, there is also a little bit of component, like what I wanted, and after that, And so that's now
So what was the industry? What was the industry that you started in?
It was e-commerce. It was e-commerce.
Okay.
Correct. Exactly. And at that time when we started, so 1996, right? For us, it was the introduction of internet. Like literally, it was like, what is a website? You know, how the internet works, what is all that, right? And so it was really, really different. Transitioning pretty much like from, let's say, like a high schoolers or beginning of college, actually, you know, playing video games or, you know, like kind of like that, to then a little bit more serious. Okay, well, the internet, the website, how do you build it? What to do with that? What can you do with it, right? And so from there, actually, slowly then transition, and at some point said, okay, well, I think we are ready for the US market. And then we came here and we realized we are absolutely not ready for the US market, like, right? Because it was such a different scale, right? It was coming from a 2 million market, right? Let's put it like that, to 430 million people here, right? And then the scale is, you know, you cannot compare it. And I'll never forget, right? We thought, okay, well, when we go, it's going to be an overnight success. Well, the only thing what happened overnight was the really hard landing and realizing, okay, well, the first thing we need money. And the only way we can get it was like a loan from a bank. And for the next 2 years, like every breakfast was bread, butter, and jam, right? And that was the only thing what we were able to eat, because that's actually the only thing what we could afford.
Right.
It was very interesting, but it was not. Now today, looking back, definitely it was a very, I would still say a very tough but very positive experience, because you appreciate and cherish, like, you know, everything what you then were able to create and build, man.
Yeah. So the whole point of hard times is building character, right?
Yeah, correct.
Does it have to be, you know, the way I describe that is the purpose of gravity is to help us build muscle tone.
Yeah.
And the purpose of hard times is to build determination.
Yeah, correct.
Right? Commitment, determination, follow through, all of those keywords, right?
Yeah, because you just push through, right? You push through, like you don't have any other choice, right? It's either,
well, no, you do have a choice. I mean, you choose not, right?
Correct.
That's the commitment piece.
Correct. But that's why that other option, like back up and actually just let it go and walk away, it's not even a choice. That's why, right? In our mind at that point, well, that's not a choice. That for us was not acceptable choice. Let's put it like that.
How many people don't use that, aren't so committed to their goals, that they give up, right?
Correct. I wonder.
I have this saying from Socrates. Smart people learn from everything and everyone. Average people learn, ordinary people learn from their experiences, and stupid people already have the answers.
There you go.
It's my favorite, one of my favorite sayings.
Right? So you literally cover all groups.
Yeah, right. But it's like determination and commitment are really key characteristics, and you had that in place when you came.
Correct. I wonder, I wonder if that is not also connected somehow to like that you're internally so competitive, but not competitive in a sense of like a sport, right? But you're competitive in a sense of like, I want this to succeed. I want to make it. I want to, right? So it kind of like drives you inside. Like it doesn't allow you, I'm going to say like, it doesn't allow you to sleep, but literally like fall behind or, just walk away, right?
But what it is it's drive, but it's underneath you go back to the commitments. Like, I'm going to be successful, period.
Correct, right.
Once you made a commitment. So here's the thing that I say, is like, it's not once you make a commitment deep enough and thoroughly enough, right? Then the if goes away. It's not if, it's just then a matter of when and how. Okay, so tell me about the how, tell me about the what you got to. Where are you now in your current situation?
Okay, so I have two companies now. One is a consulting, which is based on the experience and knowledge which I accumulated, right? Which I have accumulated through all these years in the e-commerce world, right? That's one. Because again, because we had to learn everything by ourselves. Because when we came to the US, we didn't know how to today we can talk about the VC angels, investors, all that. Well, at that time we didn't know. So we were just simply, okay, we're going to learn ourselves. Like that's what we're going to do. Right. And so we did. And so today that's why the first company which I have, the consulting one in e-commerce, like when companies come to me and say, hey, Jure, we have problems here and here. I'm like, oh, okay.
And what's the name of that company?
Breakthrough. It's Breakthrough.
Breakthrough.
Correct. And then the second company, which is a global company, it's a startup global company now already like a week and a few months. Not a week, a year and a few months. That would be really bad. Yeah, correct. Exactly. When I said it, I was like, no, something doesn't sound right. So it's a year and actually 3 months. And it's SkipQ. It's a mobile application.
Okay, slow that down because I want to understand. Say the name again.
SkipQ.
SkipQ.
Correct.
Okay.
It's a mobile application in travel retail, connects travel global on a global level, like connecting airports, train stations, and then offering everything that it is.
Q.
Correct.
Got it. We're going to have to put that in the notes down below.
Got it. That's all right. I'll do that. I'll put it in chat. Correct. But so that's actually, these are two companies, and then which I'm actively running, both CEO and founder. And I mean, for SkipQ, I'm one of the 4 co-founders, right? We are an international team. I'm kind of like between California, Europe. Justin, he's another guy. He's in Canada, in Toronto. And then I have 2 other, a woman, she's in New Delhi, and another guy, Sandeep, he's currently in India, but otherwise Australia and New Zealand kind of like area. And so we literally tap into, right, let's say, different parts of the world, consequently, right? Because you need
different continents, get real.
Correct, exactly. And it immediately, right, the exposure to different culture, to different mindsets, like how to do business, right? And it's important when you go global, you need to have that component, right? Because otherwise, coming just from one perspective, it can be, right? And I went through that, so I know how it is. So I'm not repeating the same steps again.
Right. Well, one of the key things is what's the real current situation, not what your theory is. What's the actual real situation, right?
Correct.
How is the world? What's the market?
Correct.
And then
Correct.
how do you interface with it to make it work, right?
Correct. Exactly. Correct.
Good.
So that's actually where I am. And then at the same time involved in nonprofits as well, because I know how important it is, and especially knowing, like in this country, the important segment of nonprofit, right? How that can impact the environment, people here. And so that just came just very naturally then, right?
And what is there one specific one?
One is Private Directors Association. I'm one of the founding members in Southern California. It's, like I said, it's a nonprofit where we, the organization is actually otherwise national in all major cities around the United States, but we deal with board of directors. The whole concept of the synergy and energy between board of directors, responsibilities on one side, right? Consequences on the other, and expectations on the other side between board of directors, C-level people. And then, right, in the modern world, the importance of cybersecurity, importance of cultural diversity, right? When you're running a company, inclusion, right? These are the things which are important today when you as a let's say as a business owner or literally just a business, right? You want to grow and made an impact, right, on the market.
So almost like let me see if I get this right. It's almost like a training process or a connection process?
Both. Actually, it serves also as a network platform, right?
Okay.
When the companies come and say, like we would like to expand our board of directors, let's say from 5 to 7, we need 2 additional, right? And at the same time, the educational part of it, right? And also where the trends are going and what everything entails with that, right? Let's put it like that.
I may have a few victims for that for you.
All
right.
Yeah.
So thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's
absolutely.
Not a boring life. I love that. So let's get into the questions here.
Okay.
One of the things I want to work on for the world is essentially the fact that visionary leaders are required. We don't have visionary leaders, we don't go anywhere. All of history is a result of visionary leaders and their accomplishments, if you would.
Correct.
So how would you give me an example of when you had either an epiphany or an intuition, an insight, and how it changed your life? You've just gone through this big, massive change in the last 15 years.
Got it. Yeah. So I'll give two examples. Actually, the first one, just as an observer, literally, and probably that would be also, if I would need to pick, it probably would be not, I would not say like a role model, but definitely a leader, like a visionary leader, who also, when I was listening to like a very short interview, and it was Dalai Lama from Tibet.
There we go.
And I'll never forget that short interview when he was asked by a reporter because of the impression, right, in Tibet. And the reporter asked him, well, do you really expect that, you know, the Chinese government would simply let Tibet go and allow pretty much Tibet to, you know, to develop and to live on their own? And his only answer and the only word he said back was the word yes. But the way he said, like the weight of that yes, of that word, and the way he actually delivered his answer back, like said so much more than just the answer itself. And it literally embodied the entire, you can say like hours and hours of conversations and talks about why yes and how that is important. But that small, tiny word of yes literally embodied, you know, everything.
The whole future of Tibet.
Correct.
Right?
And to me, it was like, it was just like a light bulb, bam, in my head, like in the top of my head just came on. I was like, that's kind of like that moment, like epiphany, right? Like the moment. And that was probably one I would definitely say, and he would definitely be a, you know, if I would need to pick from, you know, a lot of, let's say, maybe current now, and definitely like historical figures who I would say, okay, like who would be, you know, a person I would
visionary leader,
right?
So when that idea flashed in your head from the word he said, from his response, right? What did that feel like inside you?
It was, Brad, it was honestly just like, it was like, you know how it was like I would open a closed door and just like a ray of light just hit me, just bam, like it would.
That's my definition of an epiphany.
That to me, that's actually how I felt. Like, and it was really like, you know, even now, for example, when we talk about it and I think about it, like all my hairs are just going, you know, like just like goosebumps, right? Exactly, right? Because it's such a, still today, right? Such a strong experience, so powerful, right? Because and I guess it was like the right time at the right moment, when I guess I was also ready to understand that, right? Because it would be different, right, if I would hear that conversation or that answer, but I might not be ready, and it would not make that same impact as it did, right? So I guess I was also ready to understand it, and actually that, you know, that consequently realized the importance of that moment. Right?
So let me describe something that I'm kind of feeling or seeing in your response.
Yeah.
You had a certain level of presence.
Correct.
And that presence was part of the difference for why it made an impact.
Correct. No, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I've just
Absolutely.
gotten a notice that we've got 10 minutes left on this, and for some reason, so
Okay.
we got 10 minutes, and then we'll just go.
Okay. All
We'll
right.
reconnect.
Okay.
The second question is, what's the difference between intuition? So a visionary leader requires intuition,
Mhm.
correct?
Correct. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah.
So if a person is going to be a visionary leader, they have to have both epiphanies and intuition. What's the difference in the feel of those two moments? Because you just described a really amazing epiphany for yourself.
Got
What
it,
that
yeah.
felt like.
I would probably say, but that's actually my view. I would probably say the intuition is actually on the visionary leader on his or her end, right? So they need to have the intuition. The epiphany is actually for the receiving side. I think actually that's what they deliver then to the other side, then
Well,
for the
but
people
it's
around.
the inside part of who you are, talking
Got
about
it.
your brain and your mind and your situation when the ideas come in, which is what intuition is about, right?
Got it. Correct. Correct. So yes, I would say, so first, kind of like to break it down a little bit, like intuition, I believe that intuition, you can work on it. It comes with the experience, it comes with the exposure to certain things, right? Because the more you're exposed, the bigger I believe your pool of information, right, is, whatever that information is. The more I believe like you get that touch, that intuition of what can happen or what can
What's
be
possible.
good, correct, right? And so and then from that intuition also get like these brilliant ideas of, you know, where to go or what to do or how to impact, right? To make the impact, I believe so. And then the epiphany side, you can, right, as you're, let's say, I'm going to say like internally, right, you're brainstorming, because, right, for visionary readers, obviously the brain never stops, right? There are always multiple processes probably simultaneously at the same time running in our brains, right? And so at some point, I feel like when certain things align in our brains or internally, that's actually where the epiphany moment happens, because then all of a sudden you see that path and it becomes, it's not easy, it becomes simple. That's what it is. It's not easy. The road there, it's never easy because the easy things have been done.
Well, it takes time to map out what you don't know.
Correct.
I had this situation, let me describe this to you and see if you agree with it. I had this situation when I was doing formulation chemistry where I would literally run into a blank wall. It was like, I wouldn't, not hit it, but, you know, it was like functionally, concept wise, I couldn't make it work the way I needed it to. There was a gap between where I was and where I wanted as an end design. And so I would map out all the things that I knew, and there would always be like a jigsaw puzzle. There was always a piece or two missing. And I would map out everything that I knew and then pose that question to myself. And what I found after I studied, because I studied myself a lot, right? What I found was that if I went to sleep, you know, put it in my mind and then go to sleep for either for the night or for a nap, right? I would wake up with the answer. And what I've found as I've studied it is the brain goes through these different wavelengths as we go in for a nap, go to sleep, right? The theta brainwave level is most of a sleep cycle. Delta is the bottom 30 minutes of a 90-minute sleep cycle. And we do our daydreaming like in the shower when ideas pop in. That's the epiphany moment, right?
Right.
That's alpha. And beta is the brainwave level where we do our analytical thinking. So words and numbers, right? So the concepts, the intuitive mind works in concepts only. Right? And then we have to translate from concept into words and numbers. But we don't get the answers from our subconscious if we don't pose the question from the analytical mind.
Correct.
Does that sound about?
Yeah. Because, you know, it's interesting what you just said, Brad, because I wanted to continue and said, you know, there are definitely people who have good, like extremely good intuition. They might have these internal epiphany moments, but because they don't know how to articulate it, or they know how to present it and actually share it on the outside, they are not visionary leaders, right? Because that is also part of it, like being able to I'm just going to say, like, put yourself in the middle of the room, which is full of people, and you know how to translate your thoughts, your intuition, your epiphany moments, right, to the audience. Right now, that audience on a bigger stage. Okay, today we can talk about politicians, right? We can talk about, right, like the impact, right?
We should be so lucky.
Right. But that's actually what makes them a visionary leader, because you need to I mean, the person needs to be so strong as a character, carries charisma, right? So that's actually another probably, right? That a person has a charisma. So then when she or he walks into a room which is full of people, and she or he starts talking,
right,
like they sucks the air out of the room, because everyone is just looking at them and just swallowing every single word they say. Right. That's actually then this process of being able to transfer then the vision, right? The intuition, concept. Correct. And that epiphany moment, they had it right on the outside, right? And then once they do that, when they bring on board and all these people, because they are so excited, then you become a visionary leader, because then people will follow. And when I talk with CEOs and when I consult with them, and when they have different struggles and all that, I always ask them, I said, like, imagine you as a leader of a company, put yourself back in the Middle Age, and you're a king now, or a queen, doesn't matter, right? And now you go out and you take your army of people on the field, because that's actually how they fought the battles, right? They went out on the field, and then they lined up face to face, right? Facing each other, and then the battle started, right? And I said, like, go out. Imagine that you go out now, and then at some point, when you're there in the field, you turn around, and now look who is behind you. Yeah. Are really every single person in your company, or is just a handful of them? Because if it's a handful of them, that can tell you a lot about you being a leader. Yep. Right? Now, the more you have them, the better the leader you are, because actually they believe in you. They believe in your cause. They believe in your story. They believe in what you were able to translate to them, right? That's actually how I see it, right? And that's goes
leadership, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So what you're saying is intuition is necessary, the vision is necessary, the concepts are necessary, and then the translation into actions and process have to happen too. And that's the realm of the analytical mind. And we need those people just as much as we need the visionaries. Yeah. But you have to have both.
Correct. Absolutely. Right. Absolutely.
Good. Unfortunately, what we're going to do here, Jure, is, we were in the middle of the discussion about how the epiphany changed your life.
Correct. So that was actually one example, né? And then consequently we came through Dalai Lama to role models and actually how that is. And then probably the second example, I would say, it's also very personal. It was, coming from, like I said, from a country, Yugoslavia, and then when the Yugoslavia collapsed, the new country was then Slovenia. And
so, hang on, say that again so I can understand it.
So the old country was Yugoslavia, and the new one is Slovenia.
Slovenia.
Correct.
Got it. Little bitty sliver of a country.
Oh yeah, correct. Like 2 million people max. The country squeezed between Italy on the west, Austria on the north, South Croatia, and east is Hungary. Like tiny. And so cultural wise, right? The environment where I'm coming from, like culturally speaking, Slovenians are very much individualists, right? Like we are by ourselves, like one, right? The sentence almost always starts with just I, right? Not we, but I, right? And so, right from that mindset and that cultural background in the environment, then coming to the United States, where I first realized, and that was another epiphany moment or aha moment or however, right? My wife sometimes says, come to Jesus moment, right? It's kind of like that, bam, all of a sudden when it hits you, right? And it is, and it was, the sentence can start also with the word we. And what does that mean? Teamwork. What does that mean? we're gonna do it together, collaboratively, right?
Right.
That was actually, in that moment, came extremely fast from the moment we decided to incorporate the company in the US, right? Moment we set a foot in the United States, bam, it was like all of a sudden, it was like, oh, and it was hard. That was the adjustment period, right? And it was hard until that moment when in my head that switch turned, right? It was that moment, oh, wait a second, the importance of us all together, right? Like, how much more can we do all together in a collaborative
nobody does anything by themselves in this world. Nobody.
Correct, right?
It's always a we.
Correct, right? And so I'll finish actually this example with a funny, but an actual true story. And so that was for me the second kind of like this epiphany moment, because the realization and the importance, the weight of, you know, yeah, you have to start including, right? You will not be able to do everything by yourself at all, right? Because it's not, because the pace, the dynamic is too fast. And especially in the US, like the market, right? We're going back to business, like the market is, the dynamic, right, of the market is so fast, so fast-paced that you can't, like you literally can't, right?
Well, to go from a 2 million person country to a 400 and whatever million.
Correct, exactly.
Country.
Right. So it's impossible, right? It's literally impossible. And so two funny stories. One is when I was in 2006. I drove coast to coast, so from California all the way to East Coast, and I went like a little bit more south, and then I went up on the East Coast, and then went through Toronto back. To Canada, Toronto, Niagara Falls, Toronto, then coming back through Detroit, and then drove kind of like more on the northern side.
Northern tier, yeah, right? I've done that loop.
And then came down back to California, right? And on this trip, I'll never forget, it was the first time I stopped in, I think it's in Arizona, where there is a crater, when like billions of years ago, right? And so we were standing on the edge of that crater, right, looking down, and the tour guide said, well, and he asked us a question. He said, do you know how many people you can put like in this crater and around, right? And we were like, oh, no idea. And he said 2 million people. And I turned to my wife and I said to my wife, I said, you see, right there's our country, right down there. That's actually where we are. That's actually where we are. And so that was one, like a funny kind of like a story, adjusting to the size and the different scale in this country. And then the other thing is now today, when, the understanding which and the importance which I've gained throughout all these years living in the United States, right? So I opened up to Slovenia as well, and said, you know what, in any of businesses would like to enter the US market, right? I would be willing to help, share a little bit of knowledge, experience, and also give them like a checklist. Make sure you have this in place before, right? And so now we are talking about the I and we and the speed, right? And so when I talk with these companies, right, it's still we, and the trajectory, right? Like, let's say like the time.
Well, but if you've only got, you've got the whole hole out there in the middle of Arizona filled up with your whole country, right? Like you can pass it around pretty quick.
Correct, right? And so it always serves me, like these conversations always serves me as a reminder, right? You see, like it's okay. I understand where they're coming from, because I went through that, right? And so let me apply certain things to them, so it's going to be easier and faster for them to transition, right? But it's correct, exactly. But it's I'm going to say, like, there are like some funny moments actually when it can happen, because I'm like, oh, it's like deja vu, right? It's like someone would turn the mirror around and it would be like, oh,
Right.
I remember that. I remember
Right.
that, right?
Well, what you're looking at is you're looking at a concept
Yeah,
in your mind that you had to learn the hard way,
correct.
right?
Correct.
Woke up and said, oh, there it is, right?
Yeah.
And what you're doing is you're looking at the sequence that they have to go through and the thought process they have to go through. And you're looking at the, if you would, the consequences of that transition, that transformation.
Correct.
You're helping them through that. I love that. That to me is what visionary leadership is about. It's because you can see the end result. It's like when I meet somebody and I talk with them, I see their whole character and I read the character of their business and how it's put together. I can see the consequences of their current situation 2, 3 months out, 6 months out, 2 years out. Right. And that to me is what a visionary leader is.
Yeah.
So thank you for those stories. Those are quite awesome.
No problem. Yeah. They are real, actually, you know.
Yeah,
like,
very real. Well, but it's really what I like, Jure, is that you are giving back.
Yeah, correct. Correct.
You know, you're taking your experiences and you're giving back.
That was a learning lesson, right? Like living in the US, like, you know, that was probably if someone would ask me, you know, what you've learned from the moment actually you came to the US and up until now, I would definitely say that's one of the things, like giving back to the community, right?
Right, to give back.
Yeah, correct. The importance of understanding like why, and that literally at some point, right, how the impact of you can have by doing that, right? And the positive impact, right? Not the negative, right? But the positive impact of
raise raise the water level.
Yeah, correct.
All boats raise on a tide, right?
Correct.
Good.
Correct. Yeah.
I'm going to end this conversation. Thank you, Jure.
No problem. Yeah, welcome. Thank you for inviting me. Absolutely.
It's been fun to have you here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem.
So I've got this little saying I want to say here.
Okay.
At the end, and to my, so thank you, Jure, for being here on the Visionary Leaders Mind podcast. Remember, to my listeners, remember to keep pursuing your dreams and learning so you can guide this world with your insights, epiphanies, and hidden brilliance. Because the world needs your visionary leadership.
Yeah. Thank you.